Good evening. Welcome to Ciencia en Bicicleta, a science talk series at the Planetario of Medellín and Parque Explora in Colombia. Today, we are honored to celebrate the International Asteroid Day with the astronomer Ignacio Ferrin, professor at the Physics Institute of the University of Antioquia. He holds a Ph.D. degree in astrogeophysics awarded by University of Colorado and has discovered 12 asteroids in the mean belt. He has published over 50 research articles, has a published research patent, and is the editor of the newsletter Planetary Defense. Dr. Ignacio, welcome. The floor is all yours.
Welcome to the International Asteroid Day Talk 2022 by Ignacio Ferrin. This talk will be divided into two sections: what's going on in space and what's going on in our own planet. What's going on in space or in the sky. Here we have a diagram that shows some statistical results. And what we see is 121 asteroids that went through the moon orbit in the year 2021. In the top part of the diagram, we can see the moon, which indicates all the asteroids that have passed inside the moon orbit. And at the center of the diagram, we can see a little blue dot, which is our own planet. You can see that most of them pass far away from our planet, but there are a few dots which are very nearby to our planet, and so we want to zoom on that region and see what happened in 2021. Only one object, 2021 UA1, passed within 1.64 Earth radii. We can see that one Earth radii marks the position of our planet, and two Earth radii mark a little further away. And in 2021, only one asteroid went into that region. Nevertheless, the fact that it didn't collide with our planet, nevertheless, it represents a risk of a danger to our planet. Because the asteroid went through so near to our planet, the orbit was completely changed. We can see that now the orbit send the asteroid in a totally different direction. And that's what happens with nearby asteroids. In this diagram, we see on the left the number of objects that have been discovered on a given year. The given year is in the horizontal axis. We can see that the number of objects inside the lunar orbit are increasing as a function of time, except for the year 2029, in which we went through a pandemic and the observatories had to close, the astronomers could not see the sky, and so we have a number which is smaller than in the other years. But nevertheless, what we see here is that the number of asteroids being discovered inside the lunar orbit is increasing. This does not mean that the actual number of objects is increasing. What this represents is our improvement in the technological telescopes, in the technological instruments that we are using to discover them. And what we see is that we can calculate that in the year 2022, we will discover approximately 140 asteroids inside the lunar orbit. This is good news. It means that we are aware, that we are following what's going on. It means that the observatories are discovering more and more asteroids, and so this is good news. This diagram is a little bit more complicated. What we're showing in the left side is the number of events, and the horizontal axis, the warning time of the objects that went inside the lunar orbit. We can see that there were 4 objects, all to the left, that had a warning time of 26 days, while 26 days with respect to the close approach time, which is 0. We can see that there are 85 objects that gave a warning, maximum warning 26 days, but there were 7 warnings with 1 day only while on the right-hand side, we see 36 objects that passed the Earth and that we discovered after having passed nearby. So 85 gave a warning, 36 didn't give any warning. But even the warning in the left side is not enough to vacate a city, to empty the city, or to send a rocket to destroy the asteroid. 25 days is not enough time. So actually what this diagram is telling us is that any impact will give very little warning or no warning at all, which is precisely what happened with the Chernobyl event in 2013. In this diagram, we see that there are 11 observatories that are doing this job. Mount Lemmon had 25 asteroids discovered within the lunar orbit in 2021, and the number decreases as a function of observatory. Of the 11 observatories, 8 are in the United States and 3 are outside the United States. There are some statistics at the bottom that I will read. Nearer objects, there were almost 28,137 comets. The NEO list of dangerous asteroids is more than 1,300, and 895 are NEAs of 1 kilometer in size or larger, and almost 10,140 meters in size or larger. These numbers are really worrying because a 1 kilometer asteroid is a large collision, and 900 meters asteroid collision is also very significant. In the year 2021, there were published 900 articles, papers on asteroids, and 300 on comets. The total is 1,200. That's a lot of papers to read in 1 year. That's a lot of material to read. In April of 2021, a meteorite impacted the doghouse and made a hole in the roof. The doghouse was sold by Auctions Christie for $44,000. The German Shepherd dog, named Rocky after the event, was not damaged by the meteorite, but it fell nearby. The impact took place at 9 o'clock, approximately on April 23rd, at the city of Aguasarcas, Costa Rica. This is the atomic bomb, the Hiroshima bomb, and it caused 170,000 deaths. And we want to talk about this because we want to define what a unit of destruction power is. We can, the definition is here, one hero. One Hiroshima, or one hero, is equivalent to 15,000 tons of TNT or 15 million kilograms of TNT. Now, this number doesn't tell you anything because we are not familiar what a ton of TNT is. So we are going to define this unit of measurement using this building on the left. This building has, say, 8-story building by 8 story by 8 story. So it's about 20 meters by 20 meters by 20 meters. And that contains the 50 million kilograms of TNT. All that energy is inside this little boy Hiroshima bomb, which is about 3 meters in length and 1 meter in diameter, or 9 by 3 feet inside. However, that was not the largest bomb ever exploded. The king of all bombs was the third bomb. In this image, the mushroom cloud had already raised to 65 kilometers of altitude, 200,000 feet, and this is much larger than the flight elevation of planes. Planes fly at about 10 kilometers of altitude. So this is about 6 times the altitude of the commercial airplanes. The one hero bomb was capable of killing about 170,000 people, while the first bomb is capable of killing 10 million people at once. That means a whole city. This bomb can kill all the people in London, in New York, in San Francisco at once. That means that is huge extraction power. It was tested in the northern part of Siberia on October 30th, 1961, and had the destructive power of 54 megatons. Here is the definition of the one-third bomb, the definition of destruction power. On the left, we see a building of 300 meters of altitude, 300 meters in depth, 300 meters in the front, equivalent to the destruction power of the third bomb. In fact, the building is as high of the Eiffel Tower that you can see on the right-hand side. And the Hiroshima bomb was on the right-hand side, the lower part. You see a little cube there in comparison with the huge building on the left. We also see on the left-hand side the Antonov airplane, which is the largest airplane built, by the way, destroyed during the Ukraine war. At this very moment, our planet is bombarded by fireballs, and NASA, the Theneus database, takes care of the data in a list of these objects. The four most important events of the last 2 years are listed below. In the month of February, March, and April of this year, there were 3 events. We added the last one observed in 2020 with a DP of 0.6 heroes. These events took place in southern Mississippi, in eastern Greenland, in western South Africa, and in South China. And they have powers of 0.2 heroes, 0.3 heroes, 0.5 heroes, and 0.6 heroes. Okay, you may say that 0.2 heroes is usually a small Hiroshima bomb. Yes, but if that explodes on top of your city, it's not a nice thing. I mean, even in spite of the fact it has only 2.2 heroes, it can make a significant destruction. It can make significant damage, and it can make casualties. Here we see the Mississippi event. This is an image taken by the GOES-16 satellite. On the right-hand side, we see that the meteorite divided into 4 pieces and left 4 images, 4 little dots on the right-hand side. Here, we see an impact on Jupiter that took place on October 15, 2021. This was recently published. The destruction power was 2 megatons of TNT, equivalent to 133 heroes. For comparison, the Tunguska event had a DP of 800 heroes, so this is a really large event. These results suggest that events on the Tunguska class may take place approximately once a year in Jupiter, which is about 100 or 1,000 times more frequently than on our planet Earth. This diagram is very interesting. It shows the fireballs that have been registered by NASA as a function of time of day. On the left side, we see the day. On the right-hand side, we see the night. Years ago, I thought that the danger in the night was really important, more important than the danger in the day, but I was mistaken. We can see that during the day there were 326 events, while the night there were only 309 events. So fireballs fall more frequently on the day side than on the night side. There is also something very surprising. There are 6 red arrows that mark major events in the past history of our planet. The Tunguska event, the Tal El Hammam event, the Madrid event in 1896, the Chelyabinsk event in 2013, the Kamchatka event in 2018, and the Fatima event in 1917. These were major events. However, surprisingly, they are only in the first quadrant of this diagram, on the left upper side of the diagram. This is not normal. This is not expected. I mean, if I take 6 arrows, I am in front of this diagram, and I take the 6 arrows and I throw them in the diagram, they will fall all over the diagram. So how can it be that they are falling on the left upper side of the diagram? This is not normal. Because this is a random event. We can even calculate the probability of this happening. If I take the 6 arrows and throw them on the diagram, they will cover the whole diagram, and to have this particular distribution, I have to do this throwing 100 times. So the probability of having this distribution is 1 in 100. 1 in 100 is a small probability. So it means that we have some source of this event that are coming from this particular side of the sky. But where are the origin of these events? Where are they coming from? Really, I don't know. I don't have a way of explaining this kind of distribution. So we have a mystery there that we have to solve. Now the question is, does the Earth have a seal? A seal, we can define a seal with these 5 components, A, B, C, D, and E. A is the Planetary telescope, which is located in Hawaii. B is the large-scale synoptic telescope that is going to be inaugurated in Chile at the end of this year. C is the Arecibo facility. This is a radio telescope. D is a telescope that has to be placed in the sky, actually in an orbit near it. The reason for this telescope over the asteroids, they are coming in the daytime, and instead for the field. And because we have seen, we don't have the time to build the rocket. The rocket has to be in place, ready to go. Now, I have bad news for you. The bad news is that of these 5 elements of a seal, only A is working, the Planetary telescope in Hawaii. The telescope in Chile is not working, maybe working by the end of the year. The radar facility has collapsed. This telescope is no longer available. The telescope in space is not funded. It only has the money for the preliminary study. It may be placed in the sky in 2025 or 2027. We don't know yet. And E is not even spoken about. So the bad news is that in 2022, the Earth does not have a seal. Here is the radar facility of Arecibo. This is the telescope before and after it collapsed. In the left-hand side, we already see that the telescope had some damage in the disk. We have to say that all these cables are in tension. I mean, even the disk is in tension because it's floating. There are cables holding the structure. All this tension was so much, it wasn't well calculated, it exceeded the specifications, and the cage that is at the center of the telescope in the left image collapsed on the left side on the right image. And the telescope was completely inoperative. So we no longer have this facility. We need to build a new one with a different design because it seems that this design had some faults. Here is Point Nemo. This is the only seal that we have to protect our planet. This is the Pacific Ocean. As you can see, the Pacific Ocean is huge. It covers half of our planet. If an asteroid falls in the Pacific Ocean, we expect the damage to be small because it may create a tsunami, but since continental USA or Australia is so far away, more than 3,000 kilometers away, that the tsunami will fade and will not create a really dangerous situation for our planet. However, this is the only seal that we have. Something falling in the Pacific Ocean. I don't know if you can see a little dot, white dot at the center of the image. So I was curious to see what that dot was. And when I went there, I found that there is a island by the name of Kiribati, and it's not small. It's 51 kilometers in length. And it has some really strange names. I was not expecting to find these names there: Poland, Paris, London. So the question is this island habitated? I mean, there are people living there. I have to say that the island is very, very beautiful. It has blue lagoons. It doesn't have any mountain. It's very flat. So I would be very afraid to live there, because I would be afraid that tsunamis washing out the island. And here I'm showing you London, Kiribati, not London, United Kingdom. So there are people living there, so far away from civilization. So I don't know how it is to live there. You can see the blue lagoons on the right-hand side. You can see the blue ocean on the left side. At this very moment, there is a mission, a scientific space mission, flying in the direction of an asteroid. It's called DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test. It was launched in a SpaceX rocket, Falcon 9, from the Complex 4 of the Vandenberg Aerospace Base in California on November 23rd, 2021, carrying the spacecraft DART. This spacecraft has been designed to collide with Dimorphos. Dimorphos is the satellite of Didymos. And we can see the spacecraft DART there, just going in the direction of Dimorphos. Because the collision will be frontal, it means that Dimorphos will be slowed down a little bit, just a little bit. And we will be able to see the collision because there is a Lycia cube built by Italy, and it will send to Earth the images of the collision. Because the Dimorphos will be collided in the front side, it will be slowed down just a little bit, and the orbit will be a little bit smaller, which means that it will take a different time to go around. And that period of revolution about Didymos will be measured from telescope based on our planet on the left-hand side. The arrival will be between September 26th and October 1st of this year. The impact velocity will be about 6 kilometers per second, and the impact will be frontal. The orbital period of Dimorphos will be shortened a few minutes and will be measured from planet Earth. This experiment will validate the computer models used to predict future impacts. Actually, what NASA is doing is a calibration. It's calibrating the impact so that we can put the numbers, whatever numbers came out of this experiment, in the computer models that we have to predict impacts. Meanwhile, in our planet Earth, there are situations happening. I have this incredible image of Ronald Reagan meeting with the General Secretary of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, in the Maison South Shore in Ginebra on November 18, 1985. Now, you may ask, what does this have to do with planetary defense? We will know in a minute. We will understand what's going on here. The interesting situation is that Reagan and Gorbachev gave a statement on nuclear war. And the statement was, a nuclear war cannot be won, and thus never and must never be fought. The reason, the nuclear winter. Context. The statement was a part of a larger statement announcing an ongoing process of dialogue to reduce nuclear risk and promote non-proliferation and disarmament. Well, let me tell you, this was not achieved. On the contrary, the situation is getting worse. The fact that the Reagan-Gorbachev formula was recently reaffirmed in 2020 by Biden and Putin, and then Putin and Xi, seems to create a positive environment for the UK and France to follow suit. However, on February 27, 2022, Putin declared that he was placing the nuclear forces into a special combat readiness, a heightened alert status reminiscent of some of the most dangerous moments of the Cold War. The UN called the idea of nuclear weapons use inconceivable. Inconceivable because the atomic bombs in large quantity create a nuclear winter. We can see here the Hiroshima bomb and the Nagasaki bomb. And let's remember that the Second World War was finished when these two bombs were launched. So maybe somebody can think, well, I can launch two nuclear bombs and any war will be finished. That's a very dangerous thought. That creates a terrible situation, really, to think along those lines. Here is Hiroshima. We can see that the city has been completely destroyed. The main reason is that the buildings in Hiroshima were made mainly of wood, and so the bomb erased absolutely all the buildings except for 4 that we can see in the background that were built of concrete. Concrete was able to resist the bomb. Here we see a very small bomb, W54, one of the smallest ever built. It uses plutonium-239. It can be made with a destructive power of 10 to 1,000 tons of TNT, which is 0.0006 heroes or 0.07 heroes. Those are small numbers. If one of these small bombs were to be used in the war, what could be the response? Could this bomb start a nuclear war? I mean, could the argument be, I send you a small atomic bomb so you cannot respond with a larger bomb? But we know that this is not the case. Usually, if you use a small bomb, the answer will be a larger bomb. So even small bombs like this one are dangerous. As I mentioned before, the number of warheads is not diminishing, it's increasing. And especially because China and North Korea are building more bombs. This is the defense minister of China, and he said something really worrying. He said that his country will fight to the very end to stop Taiwanese independence. Taiwan, first and foremost, is China's Taiwan. China will not hesitate to crush any attempt by the self-governed island to seize it. Now, what we have to remark here is that he said, we will fight to the very end. Fighting to the very end means a nuclear war. This is the number of nuclear weapons up to 2022. More than 5,000 by US, almost 6,000 by the Earth. 190 in England, 290 in France, 90 in Israel, 165 in Pakistan, 160 in India, 350 in China, and we see there the small island of Taiwan that may create a new war. In total, we have more than 12,000 nuclear heads. This is more than enough to destroy our planet once and additionally several times more. So it's just too many nuclear heads. This is the bulletin of the atomic scientists. They have created not only this bulletin, but also the atomic clock. And the atomic clock at this very moment is at 100 seconds to midnight. They call it the time to doomsday. This is the clock to doomsday. That is, the time to midnight is the time to the nuclear war. In 2010, the clock was 6 minutes to midnight. In 2012, 5 minutes. In 2015, 3 minutes. In 2017, 2 minutes and a half. In 2018, 2 minutes. And in 2020, 100 seconds to midnight. In 1994, comet Baker-Levy 9 disintegrated into 21 pieces and collided with planet Jupiter. Now, this is why I said that we know something about nuclear winter, because we have seen cosmic winter in 2 occasions. This is Jupiter imaged in the ultraviolet. The circles represent the size of our planet Earth. And you can see that the fragments H to L impacted the planet Jupiter and left a dust mark on the planet. Because comets are made up half of dust and half of water ice. We can see that the marks on the left image left by the dust are huge. In fact, they are almost as large as our planet. We can see that the GG collision left a huge cloud almost as large as our planet. And the L is even worse. It really covered the front side of our planet. I went to the literature and I extracted the size of the fragments that created these clouds. And we can see the size of the fragments on the right image. For example, the L fragment was caused by a fragment of more than 1 kilometer in size. I did a correlation between the left and the right images, and this is what came up. In the vertical axis, we see the diameter of the dust cloud in units of the planet Earth. And on the horizontal axis, we see the diameter of the impactor. We mentioned the 1 kilometer impactor, and we see on this diagram that it covered 0.8 Earths. So it was really huge. So the question is, what has to be the diameter of a comet that will cover the whole Earth? That is 1 Earth. We see that the red line, we extrapolate the red line to the right, and we see that a impactor of 1.6 kilometers will produce a cloud that will cover the front side of the Earth. So if we want to cover the far side, hidden side, we need double that size. So what we conclude from this diagram is that a comet of about 3.2 kilometers in diameter will be sufficient to create a cloud of dust that will cover the front and the other side, the far side of the Earth. And that will mean a cosmic winter. That's why I said at the beginning that astronomers know what a nuclear winter is. However, there is a second case which is also very instructive and from which we can learn a lot. And that was the Chicxulub Gulf of Mexico event that took place 66 million years ago. 66 million years ago, our planet was not in the shape that we know today. For example, South America is not connected to North America. South connected is connected to Antarctica. Africa is very near to South America, and Africa is connected to Spain and Italy. We can see India on the right-hand side that has not yet collided with Asia, creating the Himalayas. The Himalayas do not exist in this diagram. Australia is not well formed, and we can see that the Chicxulub asteroid impacted in the Yucatan Peninsula, where you see the red circle. Here is the impact with a huge amount of energy. We can see the boundary between the Cretaceous and the Tertiary, which is the geological time in which this impact took place, the separation between the white area and the brown area marks the separation of the two geological ages. And we can see Luis Alvarez and his son, Walter Alvarez, in a clay layer containing iridium near Gubbio, Italy in 1981. The iridium layer is thought to mark the separation, the boundary between Cretaceous and Tertiary. And it was Luis Alvarez and his son Walter who proposed that the extinction of the dinosaurs was caused by a cosmic impact. Here is another layer. This layer was in a Wyoming rock, and the iridium is abundant in comets, in asteroids, and that layer contains 1,000 times more iridium than the upper and the lower layer. It's here. The analysis is here. On the left diagram, we see that iridium got to 10 to the 5 in amount. However, above and below, it's only 10 to the 2. And that's a difference of a factor of 1,000. And that's for iridium. On the right diagram is soot, or it's whatever is left after the fires, left also a mark in that layer. And also we can see, in this case, the factor is again factor of 1,000. So there is no doubt that the impact in Chicxulub was due to an asteroid. You can see, you can walk through here, this bridge, but you have to remember that the impact is inside, is underwater. You cannot see above water. This is an artistic interpretation of the asteroid colliding with the shallow sea rich in sulfur in the Yucatan Peninsula. This collision took place 66 million years ago and is believed to be the cause of the extinction of the dinosaurs. Billions of tons of sulfur were launched to the atmosphere, producing a dimming of the solar radiation that persisted for decades, causing cooling temperatures. This is the cosmic winter, equivalent to the nuclear winter. In this diagram, we see the Yucatan Peninsula, we see the crater, and we see that there is a white line which marks the limits of marine sediments that were placed well inside the continent, especially toward the north, due to the impact. We're going to see the impact here. On the left-hand side is a gravitational map. On the right-hand side is a radar map created by Pemex, the petroleum company of Mexico, that was searching for petroleum near the peninsula. And we can see in the right-hand side diagram that there is a dip, in the lower part of the crater. We see that there is something a depth there that was created by the asteroid colliding with our planet. This means that the asteroid collided with a low inclination, so that it impulsed large parts of the deep of the ocean toward the north, just right in the direction that we see in this white line. So the agreement between this image and this evidence from marine signatures, it's in perfect agreement. We can see that they agree. So there is little doubt that this was caused by a impact from an asteroid. This is the Gulf War. And what we see here are the oil fields in fire. The fire produces a huge amount of smoke, and this smoke has very tiny particles that will get to the atmosphere, to the upper atmosphere. And this is precisely what produces this cloud of dark dust that will cover our planet and impede the entrance of the solar radiation, and so the plants will die due to the lack of solar radiation. So this is an example of what will happen with the nuclear war. This is a ankylosaurus taking water, but is not aware that the impact has already taken place. They have to run. They are dying. This is the impact. This is I like this picture. This is a very good representation of how the planet looked 66 million years ago. There is this interesting comment by Trump, who tweeted that the best way to reverse global warming is with a nuclear winter. And he says, nuclear winter would refrigerate our planet in a couple of days, says Trump. It is a great plan, ask any scientist. And he's made this pronouncement the same day that he opposed the Mayor Obama era regulation to curb carbon emissions. In fact, it was the day in which he decided not to sign the Paris Agreement to avoid the global warming. And is this what Trump wants? All our cities in fire? This doesn't make any sense. This is absolutely irrelevant comment. This is what we want for our cities. A cloudy sky where the sun does not shine. This is crazy. And this was already mentioned by Asimov. Asimov said, anti-intellectualism and anti-science have been constant in our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that your ignorance is just as good as my knowledge. This map is just absolutely incredible. These are the major dinosaur fossil sites. You can see there is a site in Antarctica, almost in Antarctica, and in Greenland also. And there are two sites that was in the Arctic and also in the Antarctic. There are fossil sites in North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia, all over the place, including New Zealand. So the dinosaurs were all over the planet. Now, I have a question for you. What had to be the size of the impact to eliminate absolutely all dinosaurs all over the planet? It had to be huge. It had to be a major event. It had to last for decades. It would have been very nice if the dinosaurs in New Zealand had survived, because then we could go there and see real dinosaurs, but not even one survived. So this event was a major event, was a huge event. The occurrence of a nuclear winter is now a real nightmare. And this nightmare is complicated because if the temperatures during nuclear winter go below 0 degrees centigrade, the whole Earth will be covered with snow, with ice, and we will get what is called the white Earth. The white Earth is a nightmare because being white, our planet will reflect absolutely all the radiation from the sun. And so the Earth cannot be warm. The Earth will remain in a state of cold the whole time. And trying to get away from this situation is really hard because you have to paint the Earth black to be able to absorb solar radiation. So this is a terrible danger if we get to the point of a white Earth. We saw that the nuclear scientists, the atomic scientists, moved the clock 100 seconds to midnight. But in my opinion, it should be moved even forward because they make this statement in January 20 when the statements from China and from Russia were not available. So my conclusion is that we should move this clock even further. The extinction of the human species is a real possibility, and it is more probably coming from an internal affair than from a cosmic impact. That's the conclusion of this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ferrin. To end this talk, we are going to watch a short video about what asteroid impacts will be like depending on their size. Thanks for your company, and don't forget to look up.